So why organics? I personally became involved in the organic movement nearly 30 years ago when it was suggested to me to read the book Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. This had a deep impact on me. In fact, it's such a classic book, it is what launched the modern day environmental or modern day organic movement. And the whole book is a thesis about what happened at a place called Clear Lake, about 150 kilometres north of San Francisco, with a local fisherman complain about a gnat, a relative of mosquito, which made their fishing unpleasant, to the local authorities, who in turn decided to spray a chemical dichlorodiethyl dichloroethane, or DDD, a relative of the infamous DDT, also an organic chlorine, and they sprayed at a ratio of 0.02 parts per million. In other words, for every 50 million kilograms of water, only 1 kilogram of DDD was used. Very diluted, and according to the science of the time, sufficient to kill the gnat but harm nothing else. What happened after 2 consecutive sprayings? Numerous birds were found dead in the area and various other problems. And when further investigated, it was discovered that they died from DDD poisoning. So what happened? This phenomenon we now call biomagnification, or multiple toxicity through the food chain, is what took place. When the plankton in the lake were investigated, they were found to have 5 parts per million in their bodies. Which means from the original spraying to the bodies of the plankton, DDD increased in concentration by 250 times. The little herbivores, the vegetarian fish that lived on these plankton, were found to have 40 to 300 parts per million in their bodies. And the carnivorous fish, which fed on these herbivore fish, were found to have a massive 2,500 parts per million in their bodies. So from the original spraying of DDD to the carnivorous fish, it increased in concentration by 125,000 times. This is what we call multiple toxicity through the food chain. So we must remember who's at the top of most food chains. We are. Why did these birds die? Clearly they were eating fish. PCBs, polycyclic biphenyls, we now know biomagnify by the time they reach humans 25 million times. And PCBs are still found in insulation and fertilizers. Now I've given this particular part of Rachel's work in talks pretty much all around the world, and occasionally someone says something like, well, at least once we discover they're toxic, certain chemicals, we ban them. But the truth is, this is not the truth. Because if we trace back the origin of organic chlorines such as DDD, DDT, dieldrin, and organic phosphates, we'll discover that they were not created to kill insects or weeds in agriculture. They were in fact created as weapons of war to kill humans. Now this is not for me, little Alfie sitting on Google and Googling conspiracytheory.com or woo-woo.com. This is a historical fact. Organophosphates, for example, how they killed humans? They're nerve agents. How they kill insects today in agriculture? Destroying the nervous system. This is something that we really need to reflect on, the origins of things. And this has come about because of our economic paradigm, which states that all trade is pretty much good trade. And this is something we really need to reflect on. This is what led to certainly my involvement in the organic movement. We have now concluded, after being involved in agriculture, with the way our food is grown and distributed for decades now, that agriculture, if changed, will have like a domino-like effect on many other problems, knocking them all over one after the other. If you look at carbon sequestration, the CO2 problem in the atmosphere, the Rhoda Institute in the US conducted a 23-year study by some eminent agricultural scientists, and they concluded that if we were to change, of course it's an American study, but to change all the land that's currently agriculture in America to organic agriculture, that would equate to the equivalent of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to taking 125 million cars off the road. Now that is a phenomena. Think about it. The way our food is grown and distributed can have that much effect. It is not about changing light bulbs. The wonderful thing is agriculture, being aware and really thinking about how our food is grown and distributed, can have really world-changing like events. If you look at all the UN reports regarding poverty in third world, so-called third world countries, Agriculture is at the core of these problems. 50% of the world's synthetic chemicals are created for agriculture. We create 3.3 billion kilograms of pesticides every year in this world. 6.6 billion people, that's 500 grams each, get sufficient to kill every man, woman and child on earth if we were to take them orally. Of course we don't, but somehow it is destroying the world and will reach us eventually. We must really look at and be responsible for how our food is grown and distributed.